entering into a Hari Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Dayakaram Dayakaram Dantam Dharma Pravartakam Pranamami Dayanandam Madacharya Param. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So we are entering into the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Just to recap what we have seen very briefly, in the first chapter, we saw that Arjuna discovers the fundamental problem of sorrow. So this is a fundamental problem for all human beings, not just Arjuna, but he actually discovers, I have a problem. Even that discovery does not happen in one lifetime for many people. But Arjuna cannot take the way he's living his life anymore, and he doesn't understand what is happening. So in chapter 2, he asks for help. Chapter 2 is the help asking chapter. He says to Krishna, through all the verses, what is he saying? He says that I cannot solve the problem on my own. He recognizes that also. He recognizes he needs help externally to help solve this problem of sorrow. So he asks Krishna, please teach me how to get out of the sorrow, how to know what the right thing to do is in life. Please give me guidance for my life. So second chapter, Krishna begins his teaching with the summary of the entire Bhagavad Gita. So the rest of the chapters, the third chapter onwards, are nothing but an elaboration of what is being said in the second chapter. That is why it's a very important chapter, very worth memorizing also if you have the time and space to do that. The third chapter we have just completed. Krishna gives Arjuna advice now on how to act in the world. He says very clearly, you do not need to give up your activities in the world. Everything, for spiritual life, it is all about attitude. It is not about giving up your activities. The attitude is much more important than what you do, actually. So here he talks about living this lifestyle of karma yoga more elaborately, bringing in, wonderful topics such as seeing the whole world in the form of orders, the yajna, and we saw all of this, the wheel of life, all of this. And finally, he finishes off with telling Arjuna, teaching about how we manage our desires. How can we understand ourselves more on the mental level, and how we can manage our desires before they actually drive us into activity. So Krishna is very clever here. He knows that desire alone propels us into activities in life. If we're too busy in our life, we have no time for spiritual introspection. So Bhagavan is not saying drop all desires. He didn't say give up everything. He said cut down, have a ceiling on your desires. So you actually have a ceiling on your activities. so that you will invest more in spiritual pursuit also. So now in the fourth chapter, he changes the topic. He elaborates something else which we have seen in the second chapter, which is Jnana Yoga. So from verses, I think, of chapter 2, from verses 11 to 25 or 30, around 31, those set of verses where he discusses this knowledge of Atma, of consciousness, of the knowledge of the Upanishads, he elaborates now in the fourth and fifth chapters. So the fourth chapter is called Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga, which means the renunciation of action through knowledge, not without knowledge. That is very important, through knowledge. And the first three verses, he doesn't jump into this topic immediately because he sums up, he brings up another topic of the fourth chapter, which is Avatara Vada. Avatara Vada talks about how divine incarnations take place, how there is another type of birth where if humanity prays enough, we can call that one consciousness into a particular form. So he's going to elaborate on this topic, Avatara Vada, it's called, very interesting section before he begins the main teaching of Jnanam in the next two chapters. So first three verses, Krishna sums up how the teaching took place. He talks of himself as an incarnation of divinity because people may not understand the concept of avatara. People may look at Krishna in those times as well. They may have looked at Krishna and said, oh, he's just one of us. He was born, I was also born. What's the difference? So Krishna begins the fourth chapter in such a way that he gives Arjuna the opportunity to ask a question. So it doesn't start with Arjuna's doubt like in other chapters. Krishna now starts the chapter himself, but he gives scope for Arjuna to ask the question because he knows Arjuna will ask a certain question. Krishna says, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha imam vivasvate yogam प्रोक्तवानहम अव्ययम् विवस्वान् मनवे प्राह मनुरिक्षा कवे ब्रवीत् एवं परम्परा प्राप्तम् इमं राजर्षयो विदुः सकालेनेह महता योगो नष्टः परन्तप. So he starts this chapter with speaking about something very important in the tradition. It is called sampradaya. Sampradaya literally means tradition, actually. Prakarshena diyate iti sampradaya. That which is very well handed over, totally handed over, without any baki, without any remaining, is called sampradaya. So Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, the Lord speaks. He says, Imam Yogam, Avyayam Yogam. This yoga, and when he says this yoga, I have explained to you, I have initiated you into this yoga. So this yoga, you have to bring in two yogas, Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. He talks about both. So that's what he means. I have initiated you in the second chapter into these these two yogas. Where have they come from? So he says they have come from the Veda itself. They were given by me, he will say in the consequent verses, they were given by me initially. The Sampradaya, the tradition was started by me, he says, by Ishvara. He is not saying Krishna as the form, name and form. He is saying by Ishvara. He is speaking as Ishvara, the one truth. And he also says it is relevant and it is also here available for all places, all times, for all people, because it is something handed over throughout generation after generation. And who received this knowledge first? He says, Aham vivasvate proktam. So Vivaswan is the name of this being that received the knowledge first. Vivaswan is actually the Surya, so the sun god. So he was actually given first to the beginning of the solar dynasty. So in those days, there used to be two dynasties, lunar dynasty and solar dynasty. So some of the kings belong to the lunar dynasty, some to the solar. Here, the head of the solar dynasty was taught these two yogas, karma yoga and jnana yoga, directly by Ishvara. So this Vivaswan, his name is Vivaswan, was the first student of this karma yoga and jnana yoga. And then he says other kings followed, Rajarshayoho. Other kings are also there. And these people were not just kings, they were not just rulers. They were rishis, sages. So in those days, the kshatriya, the warrior class, were also given to spiritual life. They balanced, that's the beauty of it. They were able to balance the administrative duties. Kshatriya, doesn't necessarily mean only warrior. It means anybody who does administrative duties, the rulers, the judiciary, the police force, the army, those type of people. These people in those days were also rishis, sages. And how did they get the knowledge then? Because they were in the thick and thin of work. You can imagine how busy rulers and people in that position are. They got by asking. This knowledge has to be asked for. It is not just preached. As I said, it's a teaching tradition, not a preaching tradition. So they must have asked for it, and their minds were prepared to receive it. So Krishna says, Vivaswan manave praha. This Vivaswan, who initially got this knowledge, taught it to his son. So in those days, the knowledge was transmitted within families as well. Because if you hand over the knowledge to your child, you give everything totally, right? If it is to somebody else, maybe you will withhold something little. But if it is to your own progeny, you will give everything. So Praha, he taught very well without leaving anything out. Until his son understood and there was no confusion, he handed over to his son who became the disciple. Throughout this, the Upanishads and the text, you see this idea of handing over the knowledge to somebody very close. Not just progeny. Sometimes husband hands over to wife. Sometimes also the female has handed over to her close ones. So it is not just males teaching. This is another wrong concept that people have. It is a very, male chauvinistic type of culture. No, there were great female teachers in the Vedic times, 30 plus rishikas, female sages were there actually. In fact, I want to highlight what they have contributed. Nobody seems to have done that. It is always, they have also given beautiful suktams, hymns, compositions, and handed over the knowledge to others as well. So the spiritual teachers hand over also to their children, which shows what? Spiritual teachers in those times were all grihasthas. This is another thing to know. The sannyasa ashrama, this renunciate lifestyle, came much later than Upanishad and Vedic times. In those days, they lived a full life. They had family. They had sometimes more than one wife. They had wives. They fulfilled their desires through the karma kanda portion, through the rituals for results. They lived absolutely a full life until the mind was prepared for Vedānta. So this knowledge is never denied to people in the householder lifestyle, but it flowed in two sources. It flowed through two channels, grihastha kshatriyas, or the administrative householders, the kings, the rulers, and the brahmanas. The brahmanas were the teachers and advisors to the kshatriyas. So society, why did this knowledge flow down in two things? Because if these people gain this knowledge of how to live in the life, how to live in the world, they are the protectors of all other people. So you can see the teachers and advisors in society, and also the administration and the rulers in society. Two lineages were started to hand over this knowledge, because we have seen before, they are the ones who they're the role model. They are the ones who others look up to, emulate. So very beautifully, Krishna begins this. He quotes this beginning of the parampara, the lineage of this knowledge. Evam parampara praptam. This Veda, the Veda knowledge, Veda actually literally means knowledge. It comes from the Sanskrit root vid, to know. This knowledge in the Veda has been handed over in an unbroken tradition for millions of years. I initiated, Krishna says, in the form of Ishvara. I initiated this tradition, but he goes on to say, Sakale neha mahata yogo nashtaha. In the second verse, I think he says that. You have to read these two verses together. He says that even though this knowledge was available even in Arjuna's time, only very few people came for it. Who asked Krishna? If you read Mahabharata, who asked Krishna for the knowledge? So he says, because very few people knew about it, few people asked for it, it was as though lost in the course of time. He doesn't say it was totally destroyed. He says as though lost. We can also see this in India, modern India. This knowledge is available. How many Swamis, Swaminis, Acharyas, teachers are teaching in India? How compared to the population of India, 1.5 billion people, how many people come for this knowledge? Because Krishna also recognizes in those times, if people are busy, in these times, people are even busier. They don't have time for this. So even Krishna saying, this is in Dwaraka Yuga, he's talking 5,000 years back. He said, people are too busy to come to me. These now also people are too busy to come to him. Even though they're surrounded by knowledge, they can hear about it. Who makes the effort to know what it is all about? So that is because of two major factors. Since we are in this age, our intellect has dulled greatly because of all this iPhone, calculators, this, that. We have actually, in the name of comfort, dulled our intellectual capacity. In those days, calculations, even to ask a child, what is 10 plus 12, they have to use a calculator these days, right? This whole, in the name of technology, what has happened is that our intellect has totally become dull. So people don't go after the subtle aspects of this truth. That is number one thing happened in modern time. Next thing is that the materialistic and the too much extroverted orientation of people don't give space and time to come to this knowledge and to see the benefits of it, because too much busyness again in the life. So Krishna pointed out this had happened in that 5,000 years ago, and we can point out it's got worse now. So he says to Arjuna, Parantapa, it seems as it has got lost in the course of time, but it has not really been lost. He explains now the need to resurrect this knowledge in the third verse. I did not chant the second verse, but the first and second are read together. He says, we need to revive this knowledge, and this is what the Bhagavad Gita teaching is for. It is for perennial, for time now as well. Then Arjuna's question, Krishna must know, why did you choose to teach me today and not before? So Bhagavan says here, Saevayam maya tedya yogaf proktaf puratanaha bhaktosi me sakha cheti rahasyam yetaduttamam. So he begins this verse by first saying that this knowledge has come from teacher to student. Sa evayam maya tedya yogaha proktaha puratanaha. The same teaching, yogas, that are told to me today, this jnana yoga and karma yoga, these were told at that time also, were told before. It is not new knowledge. You think it's new because nobody has spoken about it until now, but Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga are the main themes of the Bhagavad Gita. And both lifestyles we have seen in the third chapter are conducive to liberation, moksha. So it doesn't matter. You have to see which level am I at. Am I at the level of being able to totally commit 100% to this knowledge, to do shravanam, repeated listening, and repeated mananam, clearing all the doubts, and also contemplation. Am I suited to such a lifestyle? You know, in the Gurukulam, 3.5 years, if you'd like to know what that commitment is, from about 4:30 in the morning till about 10:30 at night, there was nothing but Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. Totally packed day. When we did the course, the long-term course, we had not even one day off, actually. These days now, even our Gurukulas are giving a day off for people. But we were totally immersed in this teachings for 3.5 years, which is still skimming the surface, hour after hour, day after day, listening and studying this. That is the type of commitment. Are we ready for it? Only we know. Each individual knows. So Krishna says, I've given you 2 lifestyles to the same moksha. But one lifestyle will require preparation, which is the karma yoga lifestyle, and it will gradually lead to the jnana yoga lifestyle. But this knowledge is lost, Krishna says, when it reaches the people whose minds are scattered all over the place. It's good as non-existence. Nevertheless, it is puratanaha, it is always ancient, never new, coming down in an unbroken sampradaya, is coming down in this tradition, parampara, which means lineage. And if the question is coming now, why did I tell you and not anybody else? Krishna says here, because you are bhaktosmi sakacheti, bhaktosi me sakacheti. Very beautifully, Krishna says to Arjuna, you are my beloved devotee. You are devoted to me, so I'm telling you. Not just devotee, you are my friend, Sakha. That's also very, Krishna calling somebody a friend. Imagine, that is the closeness they had. In the friendship, the main thing is trust, right? You can depend on your friend, you can trust your friend. And Krishna obviously finds Arjuna capable of receiving this knowledge. Even though in this first chapter he is a nervous wreck, Krishna sees beyond that. He sees the potential. So he says, Sakha as well, you are my friend. And this idea of devotion, there is a 9-step progress of devotion. It's called Navaveda Bhakti. It's given in the Śrīmad Bhagavatam, another text, a very beautiful text. And the last step, before the last step, the highest form of devotion, before the last step of self-surrender, offering yourself to Ishvara, is friendship. So you become a friend with the Lord. Friend means you don't have any kind of barrier. You're free. You're free with the divine. So Krishna has actually said to Arjuna, you are at that level of devotion. So I'm giving this to you. You're my friend. You're my devotee. And rahasyam hetaduttamam, which means it is a rahasya, secret. It is a secret because it is sacred. It is not something to be just, as I said, branded about all over the place. People in those days, you have to come and ask. And even when you ask, we saw in the previous class, they put you to service for so many years before they give the knowledge. And people, the modern teachers and everything, Chinmaya, as I said, Swami Chinmayananda started to give this knowledge in public talks. And even if he used to say, even if I give to public 1,000 people, probably just one will come and follow up with that talk. So it remains a secret still. So it doesn't matter, it still remains a secret. So Arjuna was unique because he said to Krishna, I want to know, you are my teacher. So now Arjuna, as though, raises a doubt. He already knows Krishna's reality, but he wants all of humanity to know through the teaching of Krishna. His doubt is to clarify who Krishna really is. So now Krishna clarifies his true nature. So his doubt is on the lines of, how could you have taught this to the Lord's Son and began this tradition when you are here, right here and now? How could it be possible? So now Krishna takes some time to explain to him, and this lays the foundation for this divine incarnation. Arjuna uvacha aparam bhavato janma param janma vivasvataha katam etat vijaniyam tvamadau proktavaniti. Krishna says, aparam bhavato, Arjuna says, aparam bhavato janma param janma vivasvataha. So he says to him, your birth is quite recent. Aparam bhavataha janma, your birth is quite recent. But Vivaswan, the beginning of creation, millions and millions of years ago, he was then. Vivaswan is also a demigod. He's not a human being. How did you, who live now, have access to that Vivaswan? So he, as though pretends he doesn't know who Krishna really is in essence. It's a very clever verse because he wants to get Krishna to reveal his true identity. And he's not very rude. That's also beautiful in Sanskrit. If you know the words that he uses that word bhavataha janma. In Hindi you said aapka janam. Aapka janam doesn't say tumara. Doesn't use like that. Bhavataha is very, very polite form in Sanskrit. Respected you. When your birth was just now, but how did you manage? Katam etat vijaniyam. And he doesn't also say that you're confusing me. We saw that in the previous chapter as well. He says, how do I reconcile this fact? Tvamado proktavaniti, that you were the first one who gave this knowledge to Vivaswan. People may take you as a human being, Krishna. People may take you as a limited individual, but please help me to understand. Please help others to understand and, what you really are. So now Krishna reveals his true nature in the next verse. He speaks as a avatara, which means avatarayati iti avatara, that being that has come down from a higher level, has come down to this planet. Divine, we call it in English, the closest, a divine incarnation. So he says, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Bahuni me vyatitani Janmani tava charjuna tanyaham veda sarvani natvam veta parantapa. So as a divine incarnation, avatara, Krishna is not restricted by avidya or ignorance. He is not restricted by ignorance of his previous lives. He knows all of them, all of his past incarnations. So he says in this verse, you cannot remember your previous births, but I can. That is why. So Ishvara, as though takes birth, it is not a real birth when it's divinity. It is an appearance. We call it an appearance. So the jiva, individual, is born out of ignorance, because ignorance means what is born, the I thought is reborn in another body. That is what is called ignorance. And this jiva, individual, is always born as a result of karma. Either punya karma, which is pleasant birth, or papa karma, unpleasant births. Unpleasant means, in some slum somewhere with not much, that is unpleasant, right? So pleasant means we can say you're born in Billionaires Row in London. That could be a very pleasant birth. You have a lot of things available for you. But Krishna says here, an individual is born because of experiences that have to be exhausted. That is called prarabdha karma. So in one life, the experiences have to be exhausted. But Ishvara, is he born because he has karma? Then he will also be limited like an individual. He has no karma phala to exhaust. He is born with the limitless power to know. Omniscience, we say in English. He is omniscient. He doesn't require also a mind to know everything. That is the incredible thing. Ishvara's mind is everything we see in this universe. That is his mind, Maya. Maya is the upadhi, the mind of Ishvara. So if Maya is the mind of Ishvara, all pervasive, he is known as Sarvajnaha, Sarvavid, the knower of everything. He knows everything in detail. So omniscience cannot depend on a mind, because mind by nature is limited. We cannot, that's why we cannot become Ishvara on the level of mind, body, senses. This is also a doubt people have. When we talk about oneness, can this tiny mind, body, senses become that whole? No, it cannot. I will explode if I have the knowledge. My little mind will explode if I have the knowledge of Ishvara's mind. He knows every species on the planet. He knows every being on the planet, past, present, and future, because of this Maya Upadhi. This Maya is the Shakti, the power of Ishvara. We will see that more in maybe a Vedanta class. It requires a lot more unfoldment. But you can understand just briefly that Ishvara's mind is all of creation, which means he pervades, as material cause, he pervades everything in and through. He is not born because of karma. Then why does he choose to appear? He chooses to appear because of the collective punya karma of all individuals. So when there is a great prayer, prayer creates punya. So when a collective, this is also very beautiful to know, because many people think collective prayer is useless. You know, when there's some tragedy, people meet together, they say, let us pray collectively for the peace of those people, everything. Here in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna shows the potency and the power of collective prayer. Collective prayer can summon divinity to this planet. That is the power of collective prayer. The combined punya karmas created by the collective prayer of individuals brings Krishna, he says, down to this world as an appearance. So you can imagine, when we get together, the more people get together to pray for others, what impact we can create in that collective prayer. Very beautiful. So he says, it is not my act, my karma that has created my birth. It is your karma, all of your karma. Somewhere, some people have prayed for Krishna to come to this planet. So he said, that is what's drawn me. And my incarnation is not like yours. My body is not created from 5 elements like yours. It is like a hologramic appearance. So this is very interesting. There are 3 levels of reality that we discuss in Vedanta. Some of you may not have heard this. It is a bit technical, okay? So don't worry if you don't follow. But we have 3 levels of reality. One is called Paramarthika reality. That is the absolute reality, one consciousness. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. There is only one truth, one consciousness. That is called Paramarthika reality. Then we have another reality, which is called Vyavaharika reality, which is the transactional reality, what we are living in now. We see multiplicity, duality. We have to deal with a lot of other things. That's called transactional reality. Is the transactional reality really real? Well, Vedanta says no, because it is dependent on Paramarthika. In fact, if there's only one reality, you can't have 3 realities. That's why the other 2 that I'm discussing now are called mithya. They are dependently real. They as though exist. They're not totally real. So Vyavaharika is what we are experiencing now. The Vedanta reveals that it is not as real as you think it is, but you think it is real. You mistake this Vyavaharika transactional reality for Paramarthika, the absolute reality. And that is the main cause for our suffering on this planet, because we don't know our true nature. So this is a second reality, Vyavaharika. But there is another reality called Pratibhasika. Pratibhasika is your own projection in Vyavahara. So you don't see things as they are in this transactional reality. You project from your own mind something onto this Vyavahara. It's called Pratibhasika. So here, with reference to Krishna's birth, It cannot be Paramarthika because consciousness cannot take birth. So it is Paramarthika realities ruled out. Can it be Vyavaharika? It also cannot be Vyavaharika because Vyavaharika means you need karma to be reborn. So he doesn't belong in Vyavaharika reality. So the closest So this is very interesting to know. People who Pratibhaska means people who saw Krishna, he existed for them, but his body was not like every other body. It was not born out of karmic reaction. So it is like a kind of Pratibhasika, not fully. You see, therefore, Krishna exists. He appears to all that witness him, see him. He's not an ordinary body. Krishna was an apparent appearance on this planet. He says that because he is playing a role, when he comes in appearance, he plays a role, and this role is known to him in full. He knows his script. We do not know our scripts, but he knows his role. So there's a lot we can talk about it. It's a whole class, but you understand again, it is not as a physical body as we see our physical body. The best example is like a magician. A magician can make things appear with their own, as though, their own powers, makes things appear with their own powers. Watching the magician, what do you see? Well, you're witnessing the magic. You take the magic to be real. We just have to go for a magic show and see, oh, wow, look at that. Amazing. How did he do that? So magic keeps improving these days. You see it's real. But if you are on the magician's side and you know the trick, is it real for you? No, because it is magic. So Krishna's Sharira, he says, is magic. It's a magic body. So Avatara is pure magic on this planet. He has been, and what was the role? He will go on to say in the next famous verse, he is born for a particular birth, that is to protect Dharma samstapanam. But generally, these divine incarnations take birth for a particular purpose. There were many in Hinduism, there are many, Krishna, Rama, they were all these type of appearances as well. And he says here, Hey Arjuna, bahuni janmani me vyatitani. I know so many of my previous avatars. I know so many of my previous incarnation because I am not covered by avidya like you are. I am not covered by ignorance like you are. But he says, tavacha also, which means I know your previous lives also, not just mine. Tavacha means I know your previous lives. You also have taken many rounds of birth. But my uniqueness is in all the births, as though births I've taken, I was never bound in any way when I assumed a body. I came fully enlightened into the form. I came fully enlightened in the appearance, but you did not. You are bound because you have ignorance. So Krishna says, I know your past births, you don't know them because of this avidya, ignorance. Aham tani sarvani veda. He says, I continue to be a free being. I am omniscient while I'm acting. I may shed a tear somewhere. I may laugh at a joke, but inside I am totally affected. Like the light is affected by activities taking place within it, I am not affected at all by the script I play in the drama of this Mahabharata war or this whole stage that I've come to. So, Tvam na veta, Krishna says, you don't know, because even half an hour before slips from our memory, right? We don't have that type of memory capacity. Imagine the memory capacity for millions of births to have that. We can't even remember what we did yesterday or even half an hour before. So he says, I don't know just my incarnations. I don't know just your incarnations. I know everybody's incarnations because each jiva, each individual, I know in and through, right? You have had, if Arjuna, he elaborated, he would have said, you have had so many mothers, so many sons, so many daughters. You have been in all roles. You have been in all types of bodies. And in this birth, you are called Arjuna in this name and form. In fact, Krishna says in the next verse, I'll even go one step further and say, although it sounds confusing, my reality was never born. It is as though birth. He says, Ajo pisan avyayatma bhutanam ishvaro pisan prakritim swamadhisthaya sambhavam yatma mayaya. Aham ajaha. I am unborn. As consciousness, I'm not really born. I know my nature. Janmashtami, Krishna's birthday we celebrated recently, is not for my sake because I don't have birth. It's for your sake. We celebrate the birth of avatars. We have certain days where we cook sweets and, in India, they will a big elaborate thing. There's in Krishna temples on Janmashtami, which is a birth of Krishna, they have this chapan bhog, they have this offering of like 50 plus sweets, all sorts of dishes they will offer at the temple for Krishna. Some of those temples you should see, the whole floor is covered by food. Is the food for Krishna? He says, no, it's not for me, it is for you. You can enjoy as though my birth, I don't have birth. Aham ajaha, I am consciousness. Can consciousness be born? No, not at all. Aham avyaya. I'm avyaya. So avya atma means there is no state of avidya for me, no state of being ignorant or delusion for me, because I know everything. I am the omni in everything, omnipotence, omnipresent, omniscient. I am the omni in everything. Latin omni, beautiful, omni, everywhere. I know. I am not subject to decay or, Krishna, when they say, he kind of disappeared off the planet. There was no witnesses to Krishna's disappearance off the planet. So there's no recorded. That's what I know, to my knowledge. Maybe some people have imagined Krishna, getting shot by the arrow or something, but here really he just vanished because it was an appearance. See, he says, my true nature is not subject to decay because I'm there in all three periods of time. Where is birth for Krishna? Aham bhutanam ishvaraha. I am the Lord, the master of all beings. Ishvaraha we use as a generic term for this orders that pervade the whole entire universe. We say Ishvara. Ish means to rule over, to control. It's a very beautiful Ish. Ish. So Varaha means the one who has the power to rule over everything. So there's no limitation for this Ishvara, Krishna in the form of this great power. Prakritim swamadhisthaya means Prakriti, we have seen in the previous chapter, is the material cause for creation. He says, I wield this material. I am the master of the material. I am master of the material. If we go one step further, he is non-separate from the material. The rishis, the sages of past, envisioned it as a spider weaving the web. So that's the closest example. They witnessed all of nature and brought these examples to the Upanishads to explain Ishvara. Ishvara is like the spider that weaves the web from itself. So the web is non-separate because it takes back the web as well. But the example is limited because the spider is not the web, it is different. Here, Ishvara is the creation. There is no separateness here. Abhinna nimitta upadana karanam, which means he is the non-separate, intelligent and material cause for this whole universe. So he says, I wield my material and create myself. Nobody creates me. I create myself, keeping the matter under my control. So the gunas, what did we see in the previous chapter? You have to link that. The Prakriti controls us, drives us. Krishna says we are driven by our natures. Krishna says opposite. Ishvara drives nature. So Ishvara drives his own nature, whereas we are driven by our nature. So he says, I am a master of my nature. Sambhavami Atma Mayaya. With the help of this Maya Shakti, it is also not separate from him. It's a power to, as though make this universe appear. He says, Sambhavami, I come into existence. I appear as a hologramic view. Like when you look at me, I exist for you. So very beautifully, Krishna says that I bring myself into creation. I know who I am. I know my role in the whole drama. I know I'm the actor. I am not consumed by the role like you are, Arjuna. So he will go on now in the next verse to talk about what the purpose of his appearance is. It is a very famous, oft quoted verse of the Bhagavad Gita, where we will see that on Tuesday evening. But we can chant the verses here now, as I'm here in person in live. Somebody can repeat after me, and we can chant these first initial verses and practice them. So anybody would like to follow me in chanting? Just to practice? Nobody? I have to pick on people again. Sunday enthusiasm. Come on. Smita, thank you. Hari Om. Om Atha Chaturtho Dhyayaha. You have to unmute. Yeah.
Om Atha Chaturdhyayaha.
Chaturtho Dhyayaha.
Chaturtho Dhyayaha.
Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yogaha.
Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yogaha. Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yogaha.
Shri Bhagavanu Vacha.
Shri Bhagavanu Vacha.
Imam Vivasvate Yogam.
Imam Vivasvate Yogam. Imam Vivasvate Yogam.
Proktavanaham Avyayam.
Proktavanavamavyayam. Proktavanahamavyayam.
Vivaswan Manave Praha.
Vivasvan manave praha. Vivasvan manave praha.
So it is just Praha, no Visarga there. Praha means said. Vivaswan Manave Praha.
Vivasvan manave praha. Vivasvan manave praha.
Manurikshvakave Bravit.
Manurikshvakave bravit. Manurikshvakave bravit.
Evam Parampara Praptam.
Evam parampara praptam. Evam parampara praptam.
Imam Rajarshayo Viduhu.
Imam rajarshayo viduhu. Imam rajarshayo viduhu.
Sakale Neha Mahata.
Sakale neha mahata. Sakale neha mahata.
Yogo Nashtaf Parantapa.
Yogo nashtah parantapa. yogo nashtha parantapa.
स एवायं मया तेद्य
Sa evayam maya tedya. Sa evayam maya tedya.
योगः प्रोक्तः पुरातनः
Yoga prokta puratanaha. Yoga prokta puratanaha.
भक्तोऽसि मे सखा चेति
Bhaktosi me sakha cheti. Bhaktosi me sakha cheti.
रहस्यं ह्येतदुत्तमम्
Rahasyam hetaduttamam. Rahasyam hetaduttamam.
ह्येतदुत्तमम्
Hetaduttamam. Hayetaduttamam.
अर्जुन उवाच
Arjuna uvacha. Arjuna
अपरं भवतो जन्म
aparam bhavato janma. Aparam bhavato janma.
परं जन्म विवस्वतः
Param janma vivasvataha. Param janma vivasvataha.
कथम् एतद् विजानीयाम्
Katham etat tvijaniyam. Katham etat tvijaniyam.
त्वमादौ प्रोक्तवानिति
Tvamado proktavaniti. Tvamado proktavaniti.
श्रीभगवानुवाच
Shri Bhagavanuvacha. Shri Bhagavanuvacha.
बहूनि मे व्यतीतानि
Bahuni me vyatitani. Bahuni me vyatitani.
जन्मानि तव चार्जुन
Janmani tava charjuna. Janmani tava charjuna.
तान्यहं वेद सर्वाणि
Tanyaham veda sarvani. Tanyaham veda sarvani.
न त्वं वेत्त परन्तप
Na tvam veta parantapa. Na tvam veta parantapa.
अजोऽपि सन्नव्ययात्मा
Ajopi sannayavyatma. Ajopi sannayavyatma.
Yeah. You can split it like this. Ajopi sanna Ajopi sannavyatma
Ajopi sanna avyatma.
No.
Ajopi sanna
Sanna So sun, so sorry, you can put the emphasis on sun because double N. Ajo pisan avyayatma. It should flow like that. Ajo pisan avyayatma.
Ajopi sannavyatma.
Got it.
Ajopi sannavyatma.
Yes. Bhutanam ishvaropi san.
Bhutanamishvaropi san. Bhutanamishvaropi san.
Prakritim swamadhisthaya.
Prakritim swamadhisthaya. Prakritim swamadhisthaya.
Sambhavam. So here it's a very long word. Sam. So you split it after Sambhavam Yatma-mayaya. Sambhavam Yatma-mayaya.
Sambhavam Yatma-mayaya. Sambhavam Yatma-mayaya.
Very good. So you can split it actually two places if it's very long. Sambhavam Yatma line Mayaya. Sambhavam line Yatma line Mayaya.
Sambhavam Yatma-mayaya. Sambhavam Yatma-mayaya.
Very good. Yeah. So the line is only in the mind, okay? Not so it will all flow. I will send the recording after I do finish of the third chapter. Today, my project is to give you all the third chapter recordings, and then you can practice with the fourth. So we will meet again on Tuesday evening to continue with very famous verses and see what Krishna's birth is for on the transactional reality. Hari Om. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah. Sarve Santu Niramayaha. Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu. Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Asato Ma Satgamaya. Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya. Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Namaste. Hari Om to all.